Marco Pierre White taught Gordon Ramsay everything he knows, but when it comes to scrambled eggs, does the student outshine the master? I'm Gary from Big Spud and I'm fascinated by the relationship between these two master chefs. I'm hoping that by comparing the methods for such a fundamental recipe, we might learn something about the relationship between these two. Both of them have videos available teaching you how to cook scrambled eggs. Gordon's is somewhat viral and he's demonstrated it in at least 50 different places online, but the technique remains the same. Marco Pierre White, on his BBC Maestro series, also has a method for making scrambled eggs. I want to make both of them and understand what makes them tick.
There's an art to a perfect scrambled egg.
You make scrambled eggs creamy by cooking them slowly, not by cooking them fast.
Let's kick off with Gordon's method. I'm just going to use 2 eggs because I'm going to eat this and I'm going to eat Marco's one as well, so I'll be really full otherwise. So we're going to crack 2 eggs straight into the pan, add some butter, put it over a medium heat. Gordon's method is very much heat it for a bit, move it off. He describes the timings as...
And here's the secret behind a great scrambled egg. So you go on and off. On for 90 seconds, off for 20 seconds. Back on for 90 seconds, back off again.
So with our 2 eggs and butter in the pan, no seasoning yet, that all comes right at the very end. And then Gordon advises us to continually stir. And at this point we're just getting them started, waiting for them to thicken. Once they thicken, then we can start taking them off the heat, putting them back on the heat, just to catch them at the right side. I think one of the important things is to really scrape down the sides of the pan. Gordon says they'll take about 4 minutes, and I think he's right. What's really apparent is the smell of the butter. So they're just starting to thicken now, so I'm just going to remove them off the heat. 30 seconds to allow that just to cool down slightly. Because of course, what both chefs are trying to achieve is avoid overcooking to get dry eggs. Just as I've taken them off the heat, I'm going to add a dollop of creme fraiche, and I've done this before and it's a great idea. And a few chopped chives. And here's where we add our salt and pepper. Really important, of course, to taste before serving. Yeah, good. Yeah, this is Gordon's eggs, lovely and soft. That fluffiness. They are rich, a little, not crazily so, but they make for a really good breakfast or brunch. And so onto Marco's recipe. We start much the same way. A generous knob of butter, pan on literally the lowest heat I can make it. My butter is melting really gently. So we're tipping the eggs in. Pan is just about sputtering. He talks about being able to put your palm, just taking the heat. Yeah, I can just about take that. And then very slowly pierce the yolk, and I'm moving the egg about so you get bits of white and bits of yolk. He actually wants to see that definition. With Gordon, it was furious beating, just like his style.
Most people like to take their eggs and whisk them with a fork and turn them into baby food. I don't.
Let's look at the different instructions that both chefs gave. Is there a chance Marco is slightly needling Gordon here?
You've got the heat in the pan, take it off. And look, back onto the heat, so you go on and off.
If you have to take your pan off the stove, then you're lacking understanding in temperature.
Marco Pierre White and Gordon Ramsay's falling out is one of the most infamous disputes in the culinary world, marked by drama and betrayal and a lot of personality clashes. Gordon Ramsay worked under Marco Pierre White at Harvey's restaurant in the late 1980s and the early 1990s, and at this time Marco was on his meteoric rise in the London food scene. Marco was known for being a tough, mercurial boss with fiery outbursts, and Gordon has described working with him as educational but grueling. One of the most infamous stories involves Gordon turning up at Marco's wedding with a film crew, perhaps somewhat stealing the limelight. In another spat, Gordon Ramsay's restaurant Aubergine started to rise to fame, and Marco said that he ripped off too many of his ideas and techniques. And there was the time Gordon Ramsay arranged for his own reservation book to be stolen and blamed it on Marco Pierre White to prevent him from stealing the restaurant from underneath him. This feud would likely continue for a while because they have clashing egos. They're fiery personalities, very alpha, unwilling to back down and taking any slights very personally. While their feud has been fiery for decades, there seems to be a slight thaw in recent years.
We went to hell and back on a daily basis. He was the biggest that I've ever worked for and the best mentor that anyone's ever been.
That said, their relationship remains professional at best, in public anyway. Just stirring it gently and using a spatula to bring it down the sides of the pan. Starting to come together already. Again, I'm not beating these. I'm just moving them about. And you can see the definition that's occurring. So we've been about 4 minutes so far, and whilst it is definitely cooking, we're not breaking everything up, and it definitely is taking a bit longer to come together. And Marco says this is the secret: by taking our time, by not rushing to the finish line, the eggs just set. I always say that a lot of cooking is about juggling the amount of water you've got in your food, driving off the water, and sometimes you don't want to drive off the water. And this is one of those cases. You want to keep all the liquids until it's done the way you like. Marco thinks it should be done till it's the consistency of the very thick cream, but he also says, do it longer if you like, as he likes to say.
For some people, it might be a little bit wet, but everyone has a different palate. Yeah, it's your choice, really.
I'm just testing the heat there. It's like a candle. It's that sort of heat in there, just barely hot. But as I've discovered with many of Marco's recipes, he insists that you take your time.
Only a fool would rush scrambled eggs. Trust me when I say invest time. When you taste it, you'll see the difference.
I'm going to keep cooking them slowly over this low heat until they are set the way I like them. Some people like them really diverse, really liquidy and runny. I like mine a bit more set, so that they've got some structure, some bite when you actually bite into them. I just find that quite pleasing. And at this stage it feels like it's never going to set, but I've worked with eggs like this before, and all of a sudden they turn on you and the eggs are set. And I think at this point the eggs are definitely one thing as opposed to being a loose sloppy liquid, but they're not quite set enough. For me anyway. I think at that point I've got the eggs I want where they're holding shape. Adding about a teaspoon of cream.
Now a tiny bit of cream just to stop the cooking.
And seasoning. So here we go again, same toast. You know, it's surprising how different they can be. They are lighter, less dense. Same eggs from the same batch, by the way, same box of eggs anyway. They're incredibly creamy, incredibly delicious. They probably took twice as long to make. Gordon's 4-ish minutes, Marco's, and that doubling of time has allowed more flavour in. Unquestionably buttery. That could be half the point, couldn't it? Got Gordon on the left, Marco on the right. Same batch of eggs. I would say Marco's looks more yellow, more warm. Gordon's has that lovely spike of chive in it, which I really like, but I prefer the texture of Marco's. So there we have it. Both have left their mark on cooking, and perhaps the ultimate scrambled eggs recipe lies somewhere in between. Maybe the technique of Marco's, but I love that finish of chives in Gordon's. So, whose method will you be trying first? With thanks to channel members below. And I'll catch you next time.